Did we have any questions that haven't been answered from the group? Let me look at our burning questions, because phobias we dealt with. Oh, we dealt with some of this last week. I think it's on the recording from last week. Okay. Okay, I think we're good. We're going to go back here. So think about if you want me to do a past life and between lives, and if you have an issue, because I want you to challenge me. I want it to be a little more complex than just a sightseeing tour. So while you're thinking about that, I'm going to run back in and get another pen, because that's what I need. So weird. Okay, I'll be right back. But think about if you have an issue that would be well served with a past life, and I'll be back.
Amy, how you doing?
Good. I finally took a day today just to myself. I'm working. I got your email. I've been working though, like 1 to 11 on the 3 days a week, and then the rest of the day I see clients. So I really am pretty booked back to back.
Oh yeah.
But I will respond to your email. But today I just stepped away and did my soak.
Remember the part of the email that said, "By all means, take time for yourself."
Yes. But I will email you back. I'm going to jump back on my computer and stuff tomorrow. But I'll get back to you. I promise.
Take your time.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Now did you move from Washington State to the southeast or the north?
I was in Alaska for the last 4.5 years, and then, but I have family in Portland, so I'm from Washington originally, but yeah. So, yep.
Okay, so I found my pen. We have 3 steps that lead up to this deck here by the hot tub, and it fell off over there instead of over here. So I found my pen. So who would like to, have I worked on everybody here? Okay. I didn't work on Amy in this class though, so I could work on you. Or does anybody have a big issue, like something that is kind of burning for you?
I don't.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm kind of wondering if I've been I think I've been a man in most of my past lives, and why it's such a drive in me to be equal to men. Really energized by our new possible vice president, and I kind of wondered if I had a past life as a suffragette, but I think my most previous past life was an Indian brave in 1850 something. I don't know, nothing.
Okay. Shall I work on Tina, or anybody else have anything to work on?
To David, I wanted to thank you for the session you did for me like a couple weeks back. It was amazing. This shift that went on with the energy, it was amazing. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Cool. Good. Okay, well, Tina, it sounds like it's you. So can you get comfortable, but still a place where I can hear you? So don't get too far away from your computer. Maybe turn up the volume on your computer.
Volume up. Okay.
Just to be sure, because you'll be talking softer.
All right. I'm gonna go in here so I can lay down. Oh, sorry. Just shifting locations. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, good, good, good.
Like that.
Yeah,
That okay?
yeah. Kind of move down on your bed a little bit. There you go. So your face is in the middle. Yeah, pretty good. Um, so, so what is the end game here? What's the goal that you want to come away with?
Okay, integrating past lives that will kind of blend the masculine feminine qualities and strengthen my confidence and going forward. I don't know if there's anything from past lives that are currently holding me back.
And what do
But
you mean by blending the masculine and feminine? What would that be like?
well, I've always been pissed off that I'm a girl because I feel not only some just not the same opportunities, but been used and abused on so many levels, you know.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm part repaying karma from doing that to women in past lives or what. None that I've explored so far, but
Right. Um,
yeah.
okay. Anything else? So
And
of those, yeah,
in two
okay.
of my past lives, I know my, you call it soulmate or twin flame, has been this woman with long dark hair in both my Roman soldier life and my what I think is my most recent past life as the Native American Sioux. I both times my this female, this woman that I just deeply loved and really enhanced what you had to go through in those lives because you were doing it for someone or yeah, it had a purpose. So lots of threads. I don't know. Go explore.
Um, all right. Well, based on that, I'll ask your subconscious mind to take us to lifetime or lifetimes where it'll be the most important thing for you to understand about yourself at this time, and perhaps this attitude about being female. So go ahead and take a deep breath. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I got the trees starting to make noise out here. And just relax, allowing the bed to fully support you. Relaxing your body. And as you do so, you begin to imagine being in your favorite safe space, that place of relaxation, protection, and connection. And as you find yourself in your safe space today, how would you describe that to me?
It's a beautiful lagoon, and I am in the water being supported. And I'm aware of all the different energies, earth, the water, the air, fire. All the elements of nature in harmony.
And as you relax there in the lagoon with the elements, you look around and you realize that there is a gift that has been left there for you, a gift of empowerment to bring you certain characteristics and traits. And what is this object, this gift?
Arrowhead.
Okay.
Made of some sort of reddish stone. It's very hard and carefully carved and extremely sharp.
And when you take this arrowhead into your hands, how do you feel? What happens?
Put a lot of time into making it and honing its sharpness so that it will be assured to hit its target, whatever that intention that I aim at is. It will hit its target.
So as you examine this further, is there anything else that you're noticing about this arrowhead or how it affects you or any other messages that it has?
That the stronger and clearer my intention is, the more likely and assuredly it will be attainable.
So holding this arrowhead and beginning to meditate there in your safe space, going into a deep, deep meditation. And as I count from 3 to 1, allowing yourself to be teleported to a sacred healing space. 3, 2, 1. And how would you describe this sacred healing space?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind is it's a bit of a cave, kind of separated from other energies, as in other people. A place I can separate my own energies from everyone else's.
Mm-hmm. And just lay your hands on something there to ground yourself there.
That's actually part of the reason for the cave.
Hello.
That's kind of part of the
I just
reason.
have a second because I'm on a therapy call. I basically.
Okay. And so, again, meditating. And as you begin to meditate, again, I'd like to ask your subconscious mind to provide you with experiences and memories of other lifetimes that will be so valuable for you, especially in understanding your orientation to being female in this lifetime and how you feel about that. And as you begin to meditate, you begin to notice a hallway stretching out in front of you. And that hallway can look like anything you choose. And as you begin to move down along that hall, you notice doorways, and each one leading to past lives, memories, and experiences that will be so valuable for you today. And as I count from 3 to 1, finding yourself in front of one of those doors. 3, 2, 1. And how would you describe the door that you're standing in front of?
It's white, but it's old white, and with a little bit of like vines and flowers poking out here and there, and it kind of glows.
Okay. Interesting. And so this door opens, and as you step through, do you go indoors or outdoors? Where do you find yourself when you go through the door?
Nothing's solidifying yet.
Okay. But what are you experiencing?
Like multiple choices.
Like what?
Spinning a rabbit.
A what? A rabbit?
Rabbit. I'm doing the Alice in Wonderland thing.
Okay. So what does the rabbit mean to you? Or does it have a message?
Hmm. Not to hurry. Or maybe not to be afraid to go down the rabbit hole. Ah.
Uh-huh. So are either of those things resonating with you? A sense of hurry or a sense of fear?
I'm kind of following the rabbit. It's kind of into a vortex type of thing. And I'm going down this vortex. Oof.
And then what happens?
Okay, well, it's seems to be the Native American life. Oh,
What are you noticing?
I think something happened to my squaw, my beautiful dark-haired woman. She's so strong and so beautiful. Much stronger than I am. I mean, I got muscles and I can shoot things, but she's got this strength that's so much more than physical strength. She's so backwards. And I don't understand why that's not the strength that's revered. It's so much more important.
Which strength is more important?
That emotional empathy, Understanding what she's been through is much harder than what I've been through. She bears children, and
What else are you noticing?
part of me has been afraid to go to the end of this life.
Why is that?
Tied in with my stomach, maybe.
Okay. What are you noticing in your stomach?
Sharp pain.
And if you were just to focus on that pain, what do you know about it?
Oh God, I think I observed my wife having a spear stuck into her pregnant belly. Oh gosh. To lose both of them at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So what else are you noticing about that?
It put me into a blind rage. It's like I wanted them to kill me next because I couldn't go on without them. It was too death was death was kinder.
And so then what happens?
They kill me. It's sudden, it's from behind. I don't even notice it much. I leave my body. And I'm more interested in leaving the scene with her and hoping to see her beyond so we could be one again.
Uh-huh. So what do you notice as you leave the body?
Light. Free. leaving behind the pain. Oh, wow. She's there.
What do you notice about that?
Her black hair becomes like rainbows of vortexes of energy intertwining with mine, and we dance this cosmic dance. It's so beautiful and timeless, like we've done this before, danced so many times in so many different ways. And I miss her. We decided not to be in this one together, but we'll, we'll be we'll be together again soon. Oh, it felt so beautiful and oh, this life is so heavy with all its emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You get beyond that and you remember the purpose behind it all. There's a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. What are you noticing about that bigger picture right now?
Just how necessary each life is in the totality of all. It's all necessary. You chose it all.
Mm-hmm. So what happens next?
There's this beautiful afterlife dimension where you're able to create, well, really whatever scene or, scene or just a scene, really, not entirely a life, but a chance where you can recreate or create a scene that you maybe weren't able to experience on the earthly plane. But you do have a chance in this place to kind of, it was like a play, but better, way better. So I'm there, kind of interchanging roles with my soulmate.
What is the experience like to interchange roles with your soulmate? What is that?
It makes us able to understand each other on such a more deep level. Oh my gosh, that's she challenged me to be a female in this life so we can understand each other better in the next.
Ah.
Oh, you pew. She's waiting for me.
Mm-hmm. So then what do you notice?
She's also part of me in this life.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
she's also part of me in this life. She's
Uh-huh.
kind of helping me through, and yeah, kind of delaying her own next incarnation to assist me in this one. Thank you. Now she's reminding me I have wings.
What would you like to talk with her about?
What message do you have at this turning point for me moving forward?
And how does she respond?
Remember, strength isn't just physical. She's also reminding me of the arrowhead in one hand and the wings that I can regrow into my shoulders to help me fly.
Anything else she wants to talk with you about or remind you of?
Not to continue giving giving away my power to men, giving myself that power. I'm fully capable in female form to do that. It's one of the reasons I chose this carnation to move forward as a warrior in a female body. Just to remind myself it's not just about physical strength, it's about that male female integration. You know, we are both. We are both. But that separateness is still being played out in the world today. But we are moving uh, more toward a time where equal balances of energy are uh, the norm.
And knowing that, how does that change how you're feeling about your role as a woman in this life? About, your anger that
Yeah,
you had. And
definitely more sure of myself, more able to be okay with being a strong woman. and not allowing the environment and especially other men to deter the path of forging forward with my business, with identifying how I present myself and my business, my label being authentic, not denying parts of me, and being okay with that. My story, what I've been through, my pain will help others identify their selves, and my story is their story too. Not to hide behind some expert facade. Just to be real, be authentic, be and just kind of own that wisdom. Yeah, I've had so many incarnations. I would wonder why I was clear back to Neanderthal. I mean, I just keep choosing to come back, and I've gained so much wisdom. So I just can. It's helped me be as empathic and knowing that I am, and it's not about degrees and being steered into certain knowledge. It's about integration and knowing. Yeah, cool.
Do you feel like we've answered your question for today?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So, remembering all that you've experienced in this session and allowing the subconscious mind to continue to bring you insight, wisdom, and understanding in the days and weeks to come, as I count from 1 to 5, returning here to the present moment, refreshed, alert, and aware. 1, 2, 3, coming up. 4, aware of this time and space. And 5, fully alert and aware. And return to the present moment. Nice, thank you. That was interesting.
My mushrooms in the back there. My Alice in Wonderland scene there.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay. It's starting to come into focus for me.
Cool.
So, any for her, for Tina?
I got a last image as I was coming up of reintegrating the belly, something about letting go of the pain of that death or something. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
kind of interesting. Okay, to plug back in. Okay.
Yeah. So you were saying that about your belly and letting go of the pain of that lifetime.
There's something went on physically.
Okay. I don't know if I'm hearing you completely, but any questions from anybody about what we did? It was pretty straightforward, really. It was just um, following her lead. No questions? Good. Okay, easy enough. Any other comments, Tina, then um, on anything, or we'll move on.
Oh, I love past life regressions because each piece just gives you further insight into why you are who you know.
Oh yeah.
I just, it's endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Anyway, what I wanted to say about my going into this session, when that part of me didn't want to go into that Indian life again. I said, no, I've already been there, but my subconscious or whatever kept insisting. So I finally just went with it, and that obviously was where I'm supposed to be. You can't
Right.
be subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It knows where it wants to take you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny like that. It really has its own agenda. I have been real wiggly today, haven't I? I'm going to try to figure out where the sun is coming from.
I'm proud of myself this week because with my clients, I've been really patient, not afraid of the silences, and really letting the client uh, giving them all the time they need
Right.
without rushing.
And
And I've noticed a significant difference. It keeps the relaxation going. Um, so
did you notice that I gave you a lot of quiet time?
I did.
And were you processing the whole time, or did you wonder where I went?
No, I was processing.
Yeah.
It's almost, I feel like you're really in tune and almost know when to give enough guidance, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of practice um, to do that, but mostly the practice is being patient and not having to feel like you have to fill the spaces or talk, and comment about anything or keep it moving. But it is sort of an intuitive feeling the energy. So um, there's, I don't know if you've ever done this where you um, feel in your body like when you say something that is true, that you're congruent with, there's a certain energy in your body. And then if you say something that you're not congruent with or is a lie or a fabrication, you can feel that for me, it's like cross hatches or something, like one is a flow and the other one is like, like it's wrong, like swimming upstream or something. Um,
I would say the same when you're when the client is reacting to what you're saying. If it was in coherence with them or not.
right, exactly. So that is true in the silences too. If I can feel like you're still churning, it's like, oh, she's still doing this. And then I can feel like that's slowing down. It's like, okay, now I can, you know, push the boat a little further or whatever, I can just take that. And so you're kind of working with the energy and working with the forces rather than trying to push it faster than it needs to be or anything. But in the beginning, when people are first learning hypnotherapy, being quiet and having that space is really the tough part. So, or one of the tough parts, that and leading questions, a few other things too.
We're trusting the process, trusting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now you're going to come across people who need more guidance, that they're not going to just be able to kind of flow with the process and keep the movie running and explore that. they're more linear, like you ask a question and then they're going to give you an answer and then they're just going to sit there blank until the next question, you know what I mean? And so you'll start to be able to discern those even from the conversation at the beginning of the session, how they're reacting to things and how they're operating. And then when they get in there, you'll start to feel it. But also the first session I do with people, sometimes that's, a lot of that is really trying to figure out how are we going to work together. So that's another reason for multiple sessions is that first one, I'm getting used to them, they're getting used to me, they're getting used to the process, all of that. And so it's really not going to be quite as deep and wonderful as some of the subsequent sessions are. I did have an interesting, I know you guys are interested in spirits and all that kind of stuff. I did have an interesting client this last week, and we have some ongoing sessions. I don't think I told you about this one, about the entity, about an entity. Did I say no? She called me and, she was talking about, I have all this bad luck. I think it's bad karma. I want to do some past lives because just everything that can go wrong goes wrong. And I have all these things, and I'm always tripped up. And, every time I try to proceed, I get blocked. And so, as she was talking, I kind of threw it out there. I said, it almost seems like there might be some spiritual interference or something, and kind of tiptoeing because I have no idea who this person is or what they're going to say about it, right? And I said, it's almost like spell work or some entity or some, a spirit messing with you. And then she starts opening up, and she said, well, she asked me some questions about it. And then she said that, well, by the way, I have this voice that's always telling me things to do, and it's very destructive and puts me down and tells me I can't do things and tries to get me to do and say things that I wouldn't normally do. And, it pushes me to get angry and have a fight with my partner and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, good validation, I guess. I don't know what it is with these clients that don't want to just say it out front, but maybe she was, I think in her case, unlike the UFO one that we talked about, but I think in her case, it was more being shy, like, oh, this person's going to think I'm crazy, or, maybe that won't really sit well with her. But when I brought it up, then it was just like, yeah. So we had our first session last week, and in 1 hour, it was funny because I said, well, we probably won't address the entity right. Well, first of all, on the phone, on the discovery call, it started acting up. And she said, once I started bringing up that it was an entity and, we're going to have to deal with that and all this, she said, oh, he's talking to you now. And I said, well, what is he saying? She said, I don't want you to be offended, but he's calling you names. And I said, I'm not going to be offended. What is he saying? Oh, he's calling you a bitch and all this stuff. And I said, well, in these cases, you have to be a bitch. I said, I'll take that. That's fine, because, you got to stand up and do that in certain situations. And she said, yeah. Anyway, so when we get into so we already knew that this thing was going to happen, and I had kind of implied that, we would talk with it. I wasn't going to be threatening, but that, we would have to sort this out over time. And I asked him, I had her ask him if he knew who I was. And that's when he came back with, yeah, I know who that bitch is. I said, oh, good. My reputation precedes me, and how I operate, and what's going to happen. So, we can work this out together. But anyway, we get into into the session, and I told her, I said, well, I'm not really sure we'll do this in the first session because, it's better to stick with the devil, because, it could be worse, right? Because he's not, it's a problem, but he's not making her commit crimes or, doing anything really terrible. Although I don't want to put that in his head. but I said, this first session, what would be better would be to work on the weakness that allowed this to happen, right? So we're going to work on self-esteem and philosophical contradictions, just things that are a problem. And we'll start there and eventually we'll get to it. So we go into the session, and I can't remember if we were going to start with, well, actually, we were still going into the safe space. I don't even think we got beyond the safe space. We went into the safe space. She got her empowerment symbol. And then he started talking to her and saying, that's bullshit. That doesn't work. This isn't any good. This, and she goes, get out of my head. She couldn't even hear me. He was just like in her face, right? So I said, okay, I'll talk to him. And so we started talking, and in the rest of our session, by the end, it turned out that he was just an insecure person who had died. And he said, nobody ever listened to me. I was never important, and people would just ignore me, and nobody ever liked me, and on and on. And then he kind of indicated that this had happened over many lifetimes. And so then I was talking to him about, do you I can't remember how I said it, but anyway, eventually we talked about, well, what is it you really want? And he said, well, I want to be heard and I want to be included and all this. And I said, well, if that's what you want, you're going to have to behave that way, because right now, why would anybody want you around? If you're going to be acting like this. And he said, well, I'm just so angry and I just want to, mess up her life like my life got messed up, right? And so anyway, we had this whole conversation, and in the end, he agreed that what he really wanted was to be loved and included and to be kind and gentle. And, and I said, I recognize that part of your soul, that part deep inside of you, that before all this wounding happened, that just really wanted to be a good person. And so I got him to agree that for this week, until I see her next time, that he will be on good behavior. He's going to watch her and, kind of learn from her how to be a good person and not talk to her. And actually, I think I gave him a better job, like you would do with the imp, right? And I think I gave him the better job of encouraging her or something, like, why don't you be supportive, and be just as vocal, but now supportive of all of her plans and her, kindness and everything, and see how that feels. So we'll see, because I'll see her again Thursday, I think, Thursday afternoon. I'll see how that's been holding up. But what was interesting is even from the phone call to the time, like I talked to her, I can't remember if it was on Saturday and then we worked on, no, I talked to her in the middle of the week and we worked on Saturday on her issue. But even in those few days between, she said, he's been different, that he's still doing it, but in a different way. And he was being more respectful. And so the changes were already happening, even just from the phone call before we even started working together. So that was kind of cool. But anyway, so I thought you'd
did she know him in his life, or this is just an attachment? Like, people just go along for the ride to be assholes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really?
Random.
That's so weird.
Yeah, she's a minister of a church, like a real church, a priest of a real church, like I won't get into, anyway, the head of a church, but he kept trying to sabotage and make people upset with her and, you know, ruin this whole thing for her. And she eventually retired. She's not doing that anymore. But at the church, there was something at the church, like in the last couple of years that, so I don't know if he is one of the parishioners who had died, but he felt like he had not been included or something. But because she was so empathic, here's a cautionary tale, because she has cancer rising or something, right? So, you know, so she's, oh, you know, so even at a subconscious level, she was trying to be motherly and, you know, be like that with, I guess, spirits, because, you know, she just let him in. You know, it was her kindness and her empathy that allowed it. Not the kindness. I don't want to say don't be kind, but it's how you do it. You know, if it's without boundaries, right? Without protection, just going, oh, you know, come on in, I'll take care of you kind of feeling, you know, but then he just turned on that and decided he would torture her the way that he had been emotionally tortured.
Mm.
But he's ready to reincarnate. He was ready to go. And I said, no, hang around another week or so, and we're going to keep working with you and make sure you're really prepared to move on. Yes, Rachel.
Yeah, no, I will definitely refer anybody that comes my way with this type of issue to you. Because remember, I called you in the middle of the week about this because, you know, I was wondering specifically about people with addictions, you know, or depression or whatever. And I could just imagine, or not, I don't even want to put it out there, but if you're doing parts, you know, where, I mean, that was part with my drug and alcohol counseling work. You know, you separate out the part that is an addict from the true human beneath it. And
Right.
I could only imagine what that could lead to in terms of attachments and whatever. So, yeah.
No, my bangs are driving me crazy today. Anyway.
But I'm just, you know, so I was just calling, you know, and checking in with you about just kind of basic suggestions. And I'm serious about referring out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love what you did with that guy. I would probably try to do something like that, but there is this residual fear in me about that kind of thing. I mean, it just,
And you have to have a lot of protection because, I
yeah.
mean, he knows who I am, and I've been doing this work for 20
Mm-hmm.
years. And I have a lot of protection around me, but also I have a lot of mass in my energetic field. So entities, that's why I asked him, because entities do recognize me. I used to have entities would actually get into a client and come for a session because they wanted therapy. And then others where the person was possessed and the entity wanted to be released, but they didn't know how or they were afraid. So then they would make them come into me as a client, you know, unknowing that this was happening. But once we got into it, then the entity would come forward and go, help me get out of here, you know. So there's quite a reputation there on the astral for this kind of work that I do. Yeah. But I'm very meticulous about it because I don't want to start pissing off entities.
Exactly.
Because then I'll get that reputation. Right now I have a reputation more of peace treaties and, you know, improving karma.
Yeah, releasing rather than confronting, and yeah.
Yeah. But another interesting story, I was teaching, this was early on, it was probably 2000 or 2001. I was teaching at Bellevue College, and I had a classroom full of students, and one student wanted to, I was just teaching parts therapy. So this was maybe the second time we had gotten together as a class. So these people were brand new, right? They had learned inductions. Now we're doing secondary gains in parts therapy. And I asked for a volunteer. So this young man said he would volunteer. And he said, I'm a pianist. And every time I try to play the piano, and he was like a concert pianist, you know, on stages and things. And he goes, every time I'm playing the piano, there's this part of me that just wants to smash the keys and ruin the whole thing. He said, so while I'm playing, I have to fight this thing off so that I can play properly. He goes, I'd love to learn, you know, to get rid of this. And I didn't really recognize that that could be an entity. He was kind of making it sound like it was his father's voice, or, you know, somebody, that critical teacher or something like that. So it was just like, okay. So we got into parts therapy. The two of us are sitting in front of the classroom, right? And the students are around us. We were actually like at a boardroom table with about 12 students. And he's sitting here, and there's a complete glass wall all along my left side, about an arm's length out. He's here about 2 feet from me. And we start doing parts. Well, the part that was trying to mess things up starts swearing, I'm gonna fuck him up. And, you know, I wanna, you know, I mean, just like doing this, and the students are starting to look, and this thing got so outraged at me, right? And I kept doing it, but I did eventually get it out of there. I did that, you know, and he was adamant, but I had spirit guides take him, and I had some things I could do, and I got him out of there. Anyway, at the end of the session, because I kept thinking, this guy is just gonna haul off and hit me, and I'm gonna fly through this window. You know, I was just like, you know, watching, because you know, his shoulder was right here. The two of us were sitting together, and this window's over here, and I thought, oh man, you know, I just kept kind of bracing for him to just, because he was so pissed. And anyway, at the end, he goes, it took everything I had not to punch you, because he wanted to hit you so bad. Like, I could feel it. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
So yeah, and I've had some rough stuff too, but anyway, those are my stories.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering if you, because we talked, if you ever will offer an dance class, because I don't necessarily want to run into that. That's not what I'm putting out at all.
No.
Aware that this kind of thing can come up, and I would certainly refer, but I also don't want to kind of get myself in the middle with that kind of situation, you know.
Yeah, it's better not to, but it is good to know how to handle it, or at least how to manage it, close up the session and refer it out, you know, not to get too deep into it. Yeah.
So if you ever have anything to offer around that, that would be very interesting.
I do want to create the advanced class, because I have all the materials, because I used to have, you know, it used to be hypnotherapy, past life regression, and then spiritual awareness. And that class I haven't incorporated into anything. So I do, I keep thinking I'm going to do it, but right now I'm spinning my wheels a lot. So we'll see if I get that produced.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome. So yeah, so we have an hour, right? So I wanted to talk about the questions for today. Who knows what a step-in is? Did you read about it?
It is, I do. It is a soul that steps in the midst of life, or like maybe there's a contract between two souls where one is about to die, and then it steps in right before that process happens.
Exactly. Okay. So yes, so we don't have to die. So one of the things I've done differently now is when I'm guiding a person through a past life and we're going to go to the between lives stage, I don't say, you know, how old are you when you die? Because they may not really see it as a death. They may just see it as leaving the body, right? So I just say, you know, how old are you when you release from that physical body? You know, it's a different way of stating it so that you can get there without implying that it's going to be a death, which it could be. You know, typically it is a death, but it doesn't always have to be. So it's not that common, but it's also not uncommon. And it's not anything you have to be afraid of, because when I've taught step-ins before, you know, people are like, oh my God, I got to hang on to my body. You know, it's like the body snatchers, right? And that's not what happens. So you know, once in a while, I mean, a very, very powerful demon, for instance, could take over a body and kick you out. I'm not saying that can't happen. That's what happened to Aleister Crowley. It has happened. There is a danger of that, but it's so rare, and it would be, you would have to piss him off so bad. It would just, it's not anything we would really worry about. And they're not going to be our clients because they're not going to come in for therapy. But the step-in thing is an agreement. You know, the person is just done, and maybe the body still has some life in it. So, you know, it could die, or it could get killed, or get a, you know, a fatal disease or something. But somebody else may come along and say, wow, I could use that situation.
Does the
So
person, oh,
yeah, go ahead. No.
does the person regress to the age that the soul that steps in is? Like,
You mean you're doing therapy, then they kind of stop there? You mean?
I don't really, I can't, this is hard for me to wrap my mind around. So if somebody steps in and the soul is younger, does the person regress to the age of the soul that's taking over their person? So like if I'm really 49 and the soul of a 13-year-old or whatever, or 25-year-old enters my body.
Like big, like with
Yeah, like does that make me 25? Like what are the
your soul would not have an
know
age.
the age, right?
Yeah, I mean the age isn't that big of a deal. What happens, so when the soul steps in, 98% of the time it goes tabula rasa. So it
Okay.
doesn't remember.
Okay.
Right? It wakes up, maybe it feels a little different, or some new habits kind of come out.
Okay.
So sometimes the personality of the body is so strong that when the spirit comes in, it can't, its own personality can't emerge. It just becomes that personality of the body that is left.
Okay. Okay.
We've had spirit guides that said, you know, I'm going to step in, and they step in and they're trying to be in bodies so that they can come back around and work with our group or whatever. So, and we've had spirit guide and powerful, you know, I mean, you know, substantial spirit guides, and they get in the body and they can't break through that veil, because when they're in here, even as a spirit guide, when they're in here, they've gone tabula rasa. So subconsciously, we can talk to them psychically, and they're like, I am so frustrated because,
Oh.
but then the conscious personality can't break through. Anyway, so, and then I think I told you the story about the guy, was it this class, that was playing the guitar? Was that story in the materials?
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah. He was a musician. We did the regression, and he regressed back to when he was, oh, you know, he regressed to a lifetime where he was a musician, and they were leaving a concert and had an argument with the manager, and the band walked down the stairs and over to the van, and he said, I just floated up like that and left. So his body stayed alive too, because he walked to the van and everything was fine. So he switched, and then the next memory was when he was 8 years old in this lifetime. And he goes, oh, I'm just looking around the room going, oh, here I am. And he wasn't a very good, he wasn't really catching on to the guitar. And then all of a sudden he could play the guitar, you know, because
That's so crazy.
he brought that talent in. And then, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stories. I do know a lot of people that stepped in and out. I stepped out of my body, but when it happened, I arranged so that I would be the one to step back in. So I'm a step in, but in my original body, which is, unheard of. When I proposed that to happen, my teacher who was going to help me with this, he said, I've never heard of that. I don't think we can do it. And I said, yes, this is what we're going to do. And I devised the whole plan and it worked. So,
So what does that look like? Like is that a near-death experience, or is that you dying and going and then coming back in as you?
it's a real death experience. But then they were guarding the body so nobody else took it. Well, and I kept waiting. I kept thinking, am I going to die? Because it was a death, I kept hearing the message that, you're going to die, so then we started investigating it. And then he said, yeah, I can tell that, the pattern is that you're on the way out. And I just said, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to do that. That was in 2004. So I would have been gone 16 years by now, right? And so I said, well, what if I step back in the body? Because I needed to get out of that lifetime. He said, you're hitting the ceiling, you're hitting, and there's no place more you can go with that astrology chart, with that lifetime pattern. But if I step back in, I've got a new pattern. There was a lot of changes that occurred with that, but then I have a new pattern, and it allowed me to grow again, to go further. But what it's looked like to me was, well, first of all, we waited 9 months for this to happen. I kept waiting for it to happen, and and finally he said, it's like, you're hanging on too tight, because it's weird when they tell you you're going to die, and then it's, even I was trying to be loose about it, but there's still this, vigilance of hanging on. He goes, you're just hanging on too tight. So I'm going to push you out. And it just happened that it was during a class that night. Finally, we came like 9 months later. He said, I'm going to have to take you out like forceps, because you're just not leaving and you got to go. Because if I didn't, then it probably would be an accident. I wouldn't be able to do the step out thing. And he goes, I'm just going to push you out, and then, you can come back in. So right in the middle of the class, because we had a well-known astrologer pick the right time and place and moment down to the minute. And he goes, he'll tell me when it's time, and I'll take you to the back of the room, and we're just going to do this. And so we went to the back of the room at the appointed time. And, he has this way of doing energy that is really incredible. And he just blasted me with this energy. And when he does energy, you can literally feel it moving down through your body. You can just feel where it's going, and it's like that. So anyway, he hit me, and then I just fell back, and, somebody caught me. It's sort of like the charismatic church stuff. But anyway, I just fell back and laid on the ground, and it was like in my belly that like all the energy went down, right? And it got to my belly, and it was like having an orgasm, but in your belly, not further down, but really in the belly. It was just like this, like massive butterflies, like energy, just swirling ball of energy. And it just came up and out my mouth, just like out. And I just went out into space and, kind of paused. And then I just went slam back down into the body again. And then I went into shock. My whole body just was shaking for like 45 minutes in shock. And my husband was there, and he's a medical doctor. So he came and took my pulse, and he goes, oh, she's okay. And went back, and
Next.
we went on teaching the class and everything. And then about, 45 minutes later, I was able to sit up, and I went back and sat at my chair and went back to class. And we carried on. So that was that, yeah. But I have a whole new astrology chart that I use for like predictions and moving forward. I have a new chart that I use. And my old one I used for the body. You know, so like my old chart had the second Saturn return, but my new chart, I'm only 16. So 16 and a half.
You can drive.
I can drive, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so it's interesting
Oh.
experiences.
What did you say again your purpose for doing that was? Because you said you planned it.
Well, I didn't originally plan it.
Oh,
I was
okay.
told, and then, but then when he read it, he said, you know, you've just come to the end of like your purpose in this lifetime, or what you could accomplish energetically. You're just at a dead end, and you have to get out so you can incarnate again and start with a new pattern and a new, I mean, we'll call it a new astrology chart, but that wouldn't be the full determinant, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But by reincarnating, it's an opportunity to kind of like start fresh, you know. So I reassessed my purpose and my approach to doing things, even though I was kind of doing what I'm doing, but there's a whole other spiritual work that I do that was not included before. I mean, even though I was doing spiritual work all along, this is a whole different, deeper set of stuff that I do now.
so had you not chosen that option, you would have probably, this incarnation for you would have been over.
Over.
Yeah.
I would have died by 2004. Have an accident, get cancer, something would have happened. Because subconsciously, my spirit knew I needed to go. You know, I didn't,
Yes.
but it had a plan, right? It was like, we got to go now. And, you know, I came up with a new plan. I'm not sure if anybody's ever done that before, maybe, but I don't, you know, nobody I know had ever heard of anybody stepping back into their own body. But it worked out. You know, I said, I've got stuff to do. I was writing a book. I got engaged and I hadn't gotten married to Scott yet. My kids were still, what was that, 16 years ago? Oh my gosh. Yeah, they still needed me. Of course they do till forever. But, you know, I just didn't feel like it was time to go. And I had just, you know, I was just getting like, God, I've just gathered all this information. And now I'm just going to go and be tabula rasa and have to start over. It seems so exhausting.
That's going to be annoying.
It is going to be really annoying. And
That would be really annoying.
it's, you know, that's one reason to, you know, skip the childhood thing and just step into a body. But then you have to fight the personality. So, you know, so both ways have their issues.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating to me because like I don't have a necessarily step-in experience, but I have a near-death experience that is still so vivid to me. And I remember seeing the timelines of options of what would happen if I chose not to come back here with my family here, with all of those things. And I remember making the choice to come back here. I remember how I felt when I was doing it. It was just so interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fascinating. My brother had a near death also and had fascinating experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. And after that, I'm definitely not the same person. Like I feel like I'm the same as far as my values and certain characteristics of me, but I am nothing like who I was before that moment happened.
Yeah, your eyes have opened up to new realms.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah.
It is cool. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
cool. I still uncover little gifts from it. I still have new awarenesses from that experience.
Yeah. Do you remember the movie Flatliners?
That is exactly what I thought of when you mentioned when you were stepping out and in. I was like, oh my gosh, that movie, that Flatliners.
Yeah,
Yep.
that went south really fast for them, but
Yeah.
and that would be if you were going to be playing with that all the time like that, you would attract negative spirits that would come and start haunting you, I'm sure,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so step-ins. Any other questions about that? So it does happen. You know, we can be paying attention to that when people say, well, you know, I have timeline, you know, I, I died in 1960, but I was born in 51, you know, or something like that, where there's an overlap, some kind of shady stuff going on. You know, you would be wanting to look at what is the step in situation, you know, what is the, um, you know, the possibility there that they either left that, or they died in that lifetime, but they stepped into this one, or they left in that lifetime and was born into this one, or a combination of both. They could have stepped out and stepped in, and you know, there's all, the universe is just amazing, and it's, you know, it's vast, and so many possibilities.
Nearly, I have a situation with a friend that described this just recently, where she said she had a very vivid dream. And it was like she said, didn't feel like a dream. She felt like she was in this woman's body, and that she was a very large woman. My friend is really petite and blonde, and that she said she was vividly aware that her clothing didn't fit, and that she was essentially on the streets in New York and living out of dumpsters, and she had mental illness. She could feel that. And then the big message she got was that she was invisible. And it was like this, she said she was actually felt she was in the body. And then she half woke up or whatever, but she never forgot it. And it left her with some really, you know, vivid feelings. And this was just a few weeks ago. So I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah.
Interesting. So many things can happen. So in her dream time, she may have astral projected and either went into a lifetime, into one of her past lives where that happened, or she may have astral projected and temporarily possessed a homeless person or whatever that is, mental illness, maybe just to get the experience of that or to have a deeper understanding of that experience. So it could be, you know, it could be either of those. She might have, you know, stepped in and embodied that for a bit. I mean, it felt like it, like that, right? Like she had experience, but it wasn't necessarily her.
Right. It was very much, she said she was very much in this body, and she felt the difference. And she also had this sense of just impending doom too. She felt like she was going to be killed. So yeah, thank you. Because yeah, she was just sharing that.
Yeah, she may have been, you know, drawn to a situation, you know, either by her empathy or her curiosity or, you know, something, or maybe some connection to the soul of that other person.
Yeah.
You know, and again, we don't know the timeline or anything, right?
Yeah, she said it was recent. She said it was like it was, she thought it was like a current day, or like, you know, right around now. It wasn't
Okay.
back 100 years or so, you know.
Okay. So it sounds like she possessed somebody.
Yeah. Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, one way to have some experiences, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Gain some empathy.
Ah, exactly. Now I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that could easily be what it was.
Interesting. I'll pass that on to her. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So can everybody be famous? Yes, anybody can, but most people aren't, right? If you have the tendency to be famous, if that's part of your soul path, then it probably happens in a lot of lifetimes. And, you know, and it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen in this lifetime. You know, like maybe you have a lifetime where you wouldn't really call yourself famous, right? But, you know, it doesn't mean that every lifetime will be like the president or a queen or, you know, an actress or something. But fame can come in different ways. You know, maybe you in a lifetime you take leadership in a corporation, or, you know, it's those kinds of innate personalities that tend to emerge, you know, on top or in control or, you know, in these roles of some sort. So even if they're not famous, you know, so I get asked the question all the time, well, how come everybody's Napoleon or everybody's Cleopatra? And it's like, they're not, you know, that's really a naive question because not everybody is going to those lifetimes. But somebody lived those lives and that person gets to incarnate. And so somebody who was Napoleon or Cleopatra, and there were many Cleopatras and many Caesars, you know, people talk about that and it's like, well, which one? Or like Merlin, well, there were many Merlins. That was a position, it wasn't somebody's name. So there could be a lot of people that think that they were that person or somebody similar or had that role, but maybe it wasn't the one that we talk about, or, you know, it would be a different one, not the Cleopatra, but a Cleopatra. Yeah, and sometimes people will regress, and because they've identified in that lifetime, they identified with that person so much, or they were so close that when they regress, they remember all the experiences of that other person, and it's the time zone, you know, the time period and all of that, that they go, well, I must have been that person. And I know two people that had that experience early on in Ohio, where one person said, I was, he said he was General Patton. He said, I was Patton, and I, you know, led the troops through Africa and, you know, across Europe and all this. And it turned out that he was in the high command with Patton. He wasn't Patton, but he was like the next in command or one of the people. So he was in the war room and he was looking at the maps and they were plotting the war and the strategy. He was doing all of that and probably admiring Patton and, you know, kind of living vicariously or something. And so then when he regressed, he thought he was that person. And same with the girl that thought she was Morgan Le Fay from Avalon. And it turned out she was a sister of Morgan. But, you know, they were raised in the same family on Avalon doing all the same stuff. And I'm sure she was jealous and envious, or at least paying really close attention to the life of Morgan, you know, wishing she was out there doing all those fun things. And, you know, so it was easy for her to just go, I think I was Morgan. So we have to be careful. So when people say that they were a famous person, then I do more regressions. You'll see, you know, like on TV or in books and stuff where, oh, this person claims to be this famous person, and they just take it at face value and run with it. And it's really the ego of the hypnotherapist because they want to be the one who's hypnotizing, you know, some, you know, the Queen of England or something. But for me, I would rather have the truth. And so it's important to do a lot more regressions. Let's go find out. Let's see if we can uncover more information. And if that person was really that person, then they should have a lot of memories from that lifetime, and even some that might be obscure, that maybe you find in an obscure biography, but nobody ever really knew that about that person, right? So I would do a lot more regression around that. Okay, how does time work? Who can answer that question?
In one sentence or less.
Yes, in a sentence or less. So time is a direction. Time is one of our dimensions. And I think last week we talked about, did we talk about length, width, and height?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3 dimensions. And then electricity is another dimension that's 90 degrees apart. Magnetism is 90 degrees from all of those. you know, the strong atomic force, the weak atomic force, Higgs field, etc., are all perpendicular 90 degrees from all the others, which is why we can't perceive them. And time is one of those, all right? So we perceive time, but we can't really see it. And time is a field, and we can manipulate that field if we want, okay? So we can get time to stretch out, and we can get time to move very quickly. And it's kind of fun to play with those sometimes. So time, if you think of time as a field, and then your film strip, you know, you're on a film strip. I always use that as an example. The little freeze frames of static pictures, but because our consciousness is moving through the film so quickly, it looks like I'm moving and it sounds like I'm talking, right? But it's really just a series of these little freeze frames. And so when we can slow time down, you know, it feels like things are moving slower. Actually, I think it's when we speed it up, it looks like things are moving slower. And then when it slows down, it feels like things are moving faster. So, you know, you stretch it or compress it a different way. But it's our consciousness that allows us to experience moment by moment by moment. Okay, so it's our consciousness traveling at the speed of consciousness, which is faster than the speed of light, from freeze frame to freeze frame, so that everything seems like it's continuous. But the reality of time space is that our consciousness, if you really stretched it out and looked at it, we're conscious of about this much on a solid thing. And there's a whole bunch of experience that's happening between each of the moments, even right now. Like there's whole universes happening between those moments. So it's an interesting exercise to, like, if you're just hanging out in the day, to try to become aware of what's happening between the moments that you're actually noticing.
Is that where deja vu happens?
No, deja vu typically is when you go to sleep and you astral project, like Rachel's friend, and she goes and she gets into a situation. But Rachel's friend is different because that wasn't deja vu. Okay, so let's say Amy astral projects at night, goes out 2 weeks into the future because she's been thinking about this thing that's going to happen, this party she's going to go to. Yep. The spa treatment she's going to have. She's thinking in the future. And she goes and she, you know, her consciousness draws her into that experience. And maybe she experiences about 10 minutes of it. And then she lifts off and she comes back and she gets back in her body and she sleeps another couple of hours and she wakes up and doesn't remember that dream, right? And now 2 weeks later, she's walking through and all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, right? And it's
So
because
it's a function of astral projection then. Okay.
traveling in time, astral projection, remote viewing, you know, possessing, whatever. And you're going out into the future, having the experience, coming back, and then coming back and reliving it again. That's typically what it is.
Do you have techniques that you use to astral project or that you could share to allow people to become better at it?
I have a couple techniques that I use rather informally, but so one of them, I mean, they're kind of textbook. So one is, let's say you're laying down and you start imagining, like strongly imagining that you're looking at your body.
Yes.
So
Okay.
basically, you're throwing your consciousness out, and your clairvoyance, you know, your extrasensory vision is out here now observing the body. And you just keep focusing on that and just, you know, clearly picturing it. And all of a sudden you'll be out there. What happens to me is as soon as I recognize it, I go, you know, and then I'm back in my body again. It's like boomerang right in. So you have to practice it enough, or convince yourself that you're not going to get shocked when you actually are doing it. You know, you have to, like, you know, just stay chilled out, you know, just observe it. So that when you're, you know, all of a sudden you really are floating and looking at it and you're seeing it really clearly, you know, you have to be able to hold that without jerking yourself back into your body.
Okay. I think I've had that happen a couple times where I think somebody's watching me, but it's me watching me.
Oh, okay. Could be. It could be you from the future watching you too, because maybe the deja vu is Amy in the future coming back and looking at the Amy here.
Yeah.
Or a future life or another life, a past life, but they're coming here and observing you like you do when you
Yeah.
past life. Because
I
when
feel like that could have happened more so when I was drinking though, because I would always have this person that would come and lay on me that I thought was an angel. And but I feel like I might have been out of my body because I was I was knee deep in a drinking problem.
yeah,
And so I feel like I was out of my body a lot because of that. Like my higher self just wasn't having it. So it would peace out almost. I don't know how that works, but I would always have, yeah, I wonder if that's me. Anyway,
you could,
sorry, not to make it about me tonight. I'm just rambling.
you could do some hypnotherapy and go back and recall those memories to see who it was.
Because I do definitely want to do that. And then also, because I feel like I've left, I'm not saying that I'm a step in or like a walk in or whatever, or that I've come back into the same incarnation, but something has happened to me. My near-death experience, one thing, this other thing that happened to me was another thing that I would probably like to explore for sure.
Yeah.
That I feel like I pieced out and then got back in my body. I don't know. It's weird.
I wouldn't be surprised. I had thoughts about you as a step in too, but I don't know. I don't know for a fact. So we could do some regression around that sometime.
Yeah, because I feel like I know the moment that happened. I do. I do. I have a completely different. Yeah, we can talk about that offline and yeah.
One of our sessions. So
yeah.
Let's do that. Okay, so time. Oh, astral projection. So the other way I do it, this is just one that I kind of made up, but it seems to work for me. So if I'm like laying in bed and I want to astral project, I will imagine like there's a manhole cover here and I just crawl up and I pull myself up and I just start looking around and go from there. I mean, you could really almost do it like a reverse metaphor. So just kind of do a self-hypnosis with your induction, do all that, and then, you know, just ask your subconscious mind to take you on an astral projection trip and just start going there, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I do a lot of remote viewing too. And a lot of that is just putting my sight out there and looking at what's going on and what's happening. And you can do that even further. I mean, I did the Gateway, the Monroe Institute. No, I did Gateway, but I also did the remote viewing one at the Monroe Institute. So a week doing remote viewing all day long for a week. And it was pretty remarkable, and it was incredible of like how accurate some things could be. So it's worth practicing. That was really good. That would be a fun class to have, huh? We could practice, we could do remote viewing. I know enough about that. I could teach it or at least guide it.
Yeah. Amber, I'm coming over tonight.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Meet you in the astrals.
Okay.
Okay, aspects and aspect fields. Whew, did I write about that, or did I just add that in here? I don't know.
You did write a little tiny bit about it and how each part of a soul is an aspect. It's experiencing a part of its lifetime, but I did not see anything about fields, aspect fields.
Okay, the aspect field. So an aspect, it would be like the difference of an aspect being one dimension, and then when you add the second dimension, it creates a field, right? If you have length, all you have is a direction. But if you add width, now you have a whole plane. And so the aspect field, but the differentiation, so aspects, the way we use this term, you know, well, there's a couple ways we use this term, and we're trying to figure out a different term to use. But so an aspect could be you in this life, Amber. We'll just pick on Amber. So Amber, you're in an aspect. This is your aspect. And so that would be like one of the facets of a diamond, right? So that's the whole lifetime, and that's an aspect. We usually refer to that as a lifetime. So then the aspect field would be all of those aspects, but in a particular time space. So like we're each in an aspect field with all the lifetimes and all the moments we've ever had, right? If I did that diagram with the pools where we have all of our lifetimes sitting out in the pool, right? And so that's an aspect field. That's all of them, all those times. But we know that there are parallel universes, right? So there's an aspect field that is right here, that is having almost a similar experience to me, but maybe I wore different clothes, or, you know, I did, you know, there's enough differences. It's a parallel, like a parallel universe. And that would be, there would be an aspect field there. So when I think I gave you that chart where there's lines, and we're on one of them, we're on one film strip. But if we make a strong change in our character, we can jump over to a different film strip, and we have a different future, and then we have a different past. Well, that's that parallel. So that's a whole different aspect field, right? It's the aspect field where I'm, you know, just a little bit, you know, I'm, you know, there's a character difference from who I am here. So that I'm in that aspect. And so there's an infinite number of aspect fields. And then there's, so some we are changing ourselves, and then others are being changed on the earth plane altogether. So sometimes there's this rumbling, if you can be sensitive to it, where it's like, whoa, okay, you know, and it shifted for a whole pile of people, or maybe the whole earth kind of shifted into this other aspect. That's one of the things we're trying to do with this whole situation in the world right now, both with COVID and with all the violence and the destruction. And I'm sorry, but that's, you know, a bunch of crap. And it's leading us down a direction that we do not want to go down. This has not got a happy ending. So we're trying to do a lot of energy work to shift us over into other aspect fields where that future can look a little better, where some things start to change.
This also Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's just getting harder and harder is all I was going to say. So what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I'm wondering, so that could be like those moments in your life where you actually feel like you've got a breakthrough, and you can actually feel, and you see this in other people too, that you can actually feel a shift, and you go in a different, it's kind of like you go in a different direction. I've seen this with people as
Yeah,
well. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not a person, but with other people. That
right.
it's those moments that shift.
Sometimes, the difference would be if it would have been on that timeline anyway.
Yeah.
So sometimes we come into an incarnation because we know at age 35, I'm going to have this epiphany. So I'm kind of working, and then I have the epiphany, I change. It doesn't mean you've changed aspects. It just means that that was on the line, on that track, and you reached that, you got there, and that's what happened. But, and then there's others that are actual aspect shifts. So, it just takes a lot of practice to really understand what's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But where you'll get the difference is when it's a severe aspect change, you'll go into your past lives and they'll be different.
Wow.
It's a different timeline.
Wow.
Like, besides the death that I had, which didn't really take me out of my aspect field. It took me out of my body and out of that life, but I was still in my aspect field. So it was just my next incarnation, but instead of having a different body, it was this body, right? But I've had another situation where we had to make a very strong break. It was radical. So I had done about 45 different lifetimes back in Ohio, back in the day. And now I basically am not in any of those lifetimes.
Wow.
Or I wasn't that person. Yeah. Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, really.
It is mind-boggling. Because, and for me, it's like, oh man, so now I have to start all over doing all these lifetimes, and I still remember all of those, but after I die for real and I go tabula rasa, those won't be in my memory anymore. The only reason they're in my memory is because I went through them and I brought them into my consciousness.
Wow.
But when I die, I'll only have my own lifetimes left
Wow.
to remember.
Wow.
That's an aspect shift. But you'll start to notice that there'll be changes in the lifetimes that you visit. So that'll be a difference too.
Wow. Because I can only imagine how this plays out, like what you were saying earlier with the big shift that's going on now. Yeah, wow.
Could make some shifts. Well, we're hoping if we can get enough energy and enough conscious focus in the right direction, we could shift it. And but it's got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We're trying to get, extra help too. Yeah. So I'll go over these last questions really quickly. Do we choose our parents? We can. We have the opportunity to choose our parents. Do we? Almost rarely. Most people don't choose their incarnations. Okay? Like everybody here probably has enough awareness or enough interest to be able to participate in that process. But excuse me, unlike the metaphysical teachers who say, oh, you'll be out there and you're going to have 12 people in a council and they're going to show you pictures and you're going to choose from the book what incarnation. I mean, that's just this utopian paradise that they put out there for you. And that typically doesn't happen. Most people can't hear, see, understand anything, can't communicate, they just floating out there till they get in a body. So really, and it's sad, but the more you practice things, the more you pay attention and practice astral projection and your psychic senses, the better you're going to be when you die, because you are not suddenly omniscient when you die. People will go, oh, now I know everything. Well, if you did, you wouldn't be making the choices that you make. What happened then, huh? So the growth is happening now, the growth and the skill sets and the knowledge and the wisdom and the choices and the values and all of that. That's why we have to work to get all this stuff straightened out. And then when we're out there, like if we know our purpose and we're very sure about that, then when we're out there, if you know nothing else, you're going to be gravitating toward your purpose rather than towards alcohol or your dysfunctional relationship or, you know, revenge on somebody or obsession with some, you know, whatever. You know, you'll be really focused on your purpose, and therefore you'll gravitate towards allies or situations that will help you to fulfill that. Okay, so a lot of work to do here. So, and that's what we do for our clients, is to help them be prepared and open up and, you know, get rid of a lot of the issues that would create bad choices, really. But we can choose our parents. I think I may have chosen my parents. I mean, but I do have a lot of lifetimes with my parents, and they were good parents. So they may have been chosen for me, or I chose them, or I agreed, or whatever. But you know, it was a good situation. You know, but you know, it's possible I've made bad choices too, or choices for the wrong reason. You know, I mean, people may come in because they want to be a Kardashian, you know, okay, I'm going to go over there because I need to be famous for no other reason, you know, or whatever. You know, you never know what they're making their, you know, why they're making their choices. You know, just because we choose our parents doesn't mean that we're making good choices either, right? You know, it's just what's happening there. So, but most people aren't. I mean, if, you know, we probably assume that everybody's sort of like us, you know, like, oh, you're growing and changing and wanting to be aware, but just take a walk through Walmart and Target and homelessness and, you know, the camps and all. Just take a walk around public and you'll know that most people aren't paying attention to anything spiritual or making good choices for themselves even in this lifetime. So how are they going to make a good choice out there, right? Oh, I see this light here. Funny. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I know. It's kind of interesting. Huh? Like a cat with a diamond on its chest. Right? That's good. Okay, I think I'll just sit right here. So what happens when you die? Well, and we won't go too far into that tonight, but what happens is going to be different every time. So when you die this time, it's going to be different from when you die next time, you know, or when you died last time. So it's always different, just like every life is different. It's not going to be the same experience. Hopefully you're evolving so the experiences get better and more conscious, but you're out there, you're in the astral plane, you have no body, there's no objects out there, so there's nothing to orient you in space particularly. You're just floating in space with no stars even. I mean, but what you would see is energy fields and maybe lights that would represent different spirits, right? And energy fields and color, if you can even see them, you know. If you're blind clairvoyantly, you won't even probably see anything either. When my mom died, she was actually pretty good. She, you know, never studied this thing, but my parents were like, they let me do the crazy stuff. They weren't opposing to it. They thought it was fascinating, but never studied it or anything or stopped me. But when she died, she was a little disoriented, and we had guides that just like, you know, did a clamshell around her, right? And just kind of held her. But they couldn't communicate with her. They couldn't quite get her to respond to anything. And so she was, you know, she would have just been drifting out there without help. She would have just been like, you know. And then what they had to do, because she couldn't see or she couldn't discern anything, and she wasn't understanding what they were trying to say to her. So they started like pushing her and pulling her and sending her negative energy and positive energy, and just to see her react. And she started reacting to it. So if they were doing negative energy, she would back away. So they could tell she could start to feel the energy. And then they would emit really positive energy and she would start to come towards them. So they got her with motion. And then over time, they were able to get her to start understanding concepts, concepts that she wanted to convey. And then she stepped in. She's a step in of a grown woman. She's probably going on 60 now. And she only died, I think it was in the end of 2015. So about 5
Your
years.
mom?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah, she stepped in, wow, within months of her death, she stepped into a body. And yeah, so she's a step in, full grown. Yeah. And was pretty happy after that. She's hoping to connect with me, but I don't think we've exactly connected. So it's kind of hard to, get the energy out there for them. And then the funny thing is my dad, well, it wasn't funny at first, but when he died, he was sort of like, whoa, there is stuff out here, and so he was more aware, but then and then he was just kind of hanging on to me, and he would talk to me, and, we'd do stuff in the astral at night, but he wasn't remembering this lifetime. So he had he just had amnesia for this life. He could remember older lifetimes, but not this one. So then he decided he wanted to incarnate. So he incarnated it. I think it's in the materials, isn't it? Maybe I don't have to go through it all. He incarnated as a baby, and I knew that. It came to me in a dream, and then I was able to pinpoint. I said, it's going to be in Montana, and it's going to be a girl. And it was Montana and a girl. And he stepped in, but after about 3 days, he was so frustrated that the baby had crib death. He got so angry about being there. He realized what a mistake he had made, and the baby had crib death, and he got out of there. And I was like that too. Oh, that's too bad. And my teacher was reading it, and he said, no, they were teenagers and they had to get married, and they didn't know how they were going to do this, and it really wasn't good. And as soon as that happened, they were like, okay, do over. So it really, for them, it was a blessing too. So I think my dad made the right choice. Then he got out, and then he stepped into another little baby, and it was the niece of my daughter. My daughter had gotten married, and it was his brother's child. And so he was in there, and I got to meet him when he was in that baby. She was about 3 years old then. So he was there for about 3 years, 4 years, and the parents divorced, and it was a bad situation, and he got frustrated and got out of there again. And then he started getting so frustrated that he just got depressed, and he just started spiraling inside himself, and nobody could reach him for months, like, I don't know, 2-3 months. The guides again were just hanging on to him and actually holding his energy together, because he would have lost part of his spirit. Actually, his soul would have started dissipating. He had spiraled so far downward, and it was like 100 years for him. I mean, he was just in this spiral, and he wouldn't communicate, and he wouldn't do anything. But they did something. They took him one night, and they said it took us about 3 years in the astral, but it was only one night here. So they, did a time thing, and they finally got through to him, and he, kind of came to again, and he stepped in to a body of a full-grown man, in the same town my mother had stepped into. But see, this was years later. She was already there. Well, I don't know that. Actually, I don't know that. But I've met him since then. So I know him. I haven't told him he's my dad, but I know him. And I know they live in the same city. And I said, I think there's a woman you're supposed to meet there. So keep your options open. So that's all I told him. But anyway, so we're at the end of that's all my stories for tonight. So anything before we close for today?
You're going to laugh. This is a really basic question. Thank you, Seth, because I feel like I went in just to absorb everything you've got to share. So I really appreciate your being open to so many questions.
And so many crazy stories, huh?
Yeah, I love it. Well, I was going to ask, because I'm going to be doing some relaxation work with a friend tomorrow. And would it be okay if to use a reverse metaphor? I know I don't want to go deep with the friend, but would that kind of work be okay for a long-term friend? We've known each other literally for 40 years.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it depends on what issue she wants to work on, but
we want to keep it light, but I just wondered how if that would be okay.
of course, yeah, practice it. You'll have fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then try to come to the call on Tuesday morning. Okay, it's just a free call, and kind of just ask any questions you want. And that's it. And otherwise, we'll see you Tuesday afternoon. It'll be our last call.
Saturday thing too, right?
That's crazy.
You're on the
Bye, everybody.
Oh yeah,
Bye.
I'm on the radio. I'm on the radio Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific. So yeah, tune in on the radio too.
Okay,
So.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.